Hi, Jack. I guess we can start. People are joining in. Uh, okay. Uh, Thank you guys for joining on a weekday in the evening. Before I start, I would like to talk a little bit about myself and what I do. My name is Subhendu Panigrahi. I run a company called Skillenza. I guess some of you might know about the company. It's a startup based out of Bangalore. We are a 5-year-old startup uh, which helps companies to hire right talent through hackathons and helps professionals and students like you to find the right opportunity, right? We have been in business for last 5 years. We have a platform where you can go and discover the best companies that are hiring. You can participate in our hackathons. You can participate in our coding challenges. You can participate in our data science challenges. Showcase your skills, and based on how you perform, companies talk to you and hire you. We also have a lot of learning resources that will help you to become better in form of blogs, in form of webinars, in form of video lectures. We work with companies like Society Generale, Samsung, ThoughtWorks. We work with startups like Dunzo, Rapido, Less Transport. So we have a mix of companies that you can choose from as a student or as a professional, and work towards that, right? One of the questions that we always get as Skillenza is, how do I get in front of the best tech companies, right? The best product companies. Before I start my presentation today, let me um, give you a little background of what a product company means versus the other companies, right? So basically, companies like Amazon, Facebook, just imagine the products that you use on a daily basis, right? For example, what's the uh, product that you use for viewing content? Either it's Netflix or it's Hotstar or it's YouTube, right? What's the application that you use to chat with your friends, right? Either it's something like Zoom, which I'm using today, or WhatsApp, right? What is the platform that you are using to put pictures and stories of your daily life? Either it's Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook stories, right? So what happens is, all of these products, applications that you see are being built by startups or large enterprises, right? So these are categorized as product companies or startups who build their own technology, who build their own infrastructure, right? Second set of companies is companies which you might have heard about are, let's say, Infosys, Wipro, right? Uh, TCS. These are companies that are which are categorized as product development companies or services companies. So what they do is they actually build these technologies or products for somebody else, right? So they don't own these products, they build it for somebody else. So that's the difference between a services company, which means they build technology, they build solutions for a client, and product or tech companies who build solutions for themselves, right? So now, why do we talk about these product companies, right? So what happens is, when you are building a product for yourself, right, as a startup or as a tech company, you own it from end to end, right? You build it from scratch. You build the UX, you build the design. And I hope you guys understand what UX is. Basically, the user experience, the way you use a product, right? The screens that you see, the buttons, the color, right? All of those things are designed by a UX designer, right? So the company owns literally from the concept of the product, right, to the execution. So they own the design of the product, they own the implementation of the product, the basically hosting, security, everything. Architecture of the product is owned by the company itself, right? The various teams of the companies, right? And when you are part of such a team, the kind of work you are doing is uh, of higher, you can say, value, right? It's more challenging because you're doing things from end to end, not writing a small piece of code for a larger software or larger product, right? So that way, the intellectual environment there is of high quality, right? And that is why when companies are looking to hire you, these companies, they want you to be at your best, right? So they are looking for the highest quality of talent. You got my point, right? Because they do a lot of complex work, they do a lot of challenging work in terms of technology and data and design. They want the highest quality of talent, right? So that's why they look for a different kind of talent, and that's why when we talk about jobs and internships and opportunities, we say that these kind of companies, the logos that I have put, uh, are the most popular ones, right? And now, when as a student or as a professional, when you're thinking of your next opportunity, next gig, next work, right? You are thinking, how can I talk to these companies? So that's why my topic today is that how do I get right swipe from these companies, right? And most of the college kids or working professionals have a dream of working in some of these challenging environments, right? That's why, how do I get a right swipe? Like, I guess most of you guys are young guys, so you use Tinder. So, right, and how do you get the right swipe? Because these companies are looking for the best talent. How do they talk to you, right? Why should they even consider you for an interview? So how do you achieve that, right? So I will talk more about it in the following slides. But before that, before I go to the slide, I always design slides which are interesting. I try to shy away from a lot of text bullet points because they tend to be boring, and I don't like something which is boring, right? So what I try to do is I will have slides which are actually basically taken from some of my favorite movies, and these slides are basically um, parts of the movie, and each slide has a story, right? It shows why the slide is there and what it means. And I guess all of you guys are watching it live on YouTube. So what you can do is, if you can figure out the movie's name, you can just put it on the chat, right? Just for fun, and we'll proceed like that, right? So let me go to the next slide. So this is the I guess you can guess this movie. Most of you guys would have seen it. It's one of my favorite movies. So what happens is, this if you remember this movie, right? It's from the first Kung Fu Panda, right? Where Po, the panda, is getting trained to become the dragon warrior, and this is what we want, right? We want you guys to train yourselves hard, and prepare yourselves. And if you remember, when Master Oogway declared that uh, Kung Fu Panda or Po is going to be the dragon warrior, nobody believed in him, right? So you can just relate it to somebody from a very humble background, from a tier 2, tier 3 college, who thinks that they don't have access to knowledge and opportunity, still stands a chance to get some of these dream companies, right? And how do you do it? The first step is to train yourself hard. What you do there is, you go through the computer science fundamentals, algorithm, data structures. There is tons of content in the market today. You can go to Coursera's of the world, Udacity, Free Code Camp. There are a lot of YouTube videos, Udemy. There are some of the boot camps today in the market. There is Scalar, there is Atinu. In fact, Skillenza is also launching its own boot camp called Skill Dojo. So you can also look out for more details. So basically, these boot camps focus on the basic fundamental skills of computer science, which is algorithm and data structures, right? And there are some of these platforms like Skillenza, HackerRank, where you can go and uh, practice these things, right? Then second thing, very important, if you're looking to crack jobs in companies like Amazon and Facebook, to have a very strong maths background, right? So I guess most of you guys are engineers here, so you would have gone through the maths in your high school and engineering days, but you have to refresh those concepts. For that, you need to go through some of the mathematical concepts that are necessary for a programmer, right? For example, like combinatorics or probability, right? Some of these things is very important, which you need to go through. Then the analytical skills, very important for an engineer, right? Problem solving, analytical skills. So as an engineer, just pick up something from the MBA exams, right? The logical reasoning and quant kind of questions. Just practice that also, because some of these companies also put these questions in their interviews, right? So this just gives you a flair of how things happen there, and also prepares you from an analytical point of view, right? And fourth point is, as an engineer, at the end of the day, the expectation from any company, right, is for you to build products, right? So for that, you should understand how to build products, which means you need to understand the architecture. How do you, what is backend, what is front end, what is middleware, right? What are the new trends in all of these technologies? How do you host an application on cloud computing like Azure or AWS? So some of these basic building blocks of a product or an app is what you need to learn, right? The second, moving to the next slide. Now, if you remember this movie, can anybody guess on the YouTube chat which is this movie? Let us see if people can guess this movie. Anybody can guess this movie? I'm waiting to see the answers. No? Anybody? I'll just give 10 seconds more. No, I guess people have not seen this, but you should see this movie. It's a great movie. It's called Pursuit of Happiness. So if you, because I guess a lot of people have not seen the movie, I'll just quickly mention. So Will Smith is trying to build a product for dental care, right? And then that is a product that he's built from scratch, right? And he's passionate about the product, and he wants to build a company out of it, right? So that is what we expect from engineers. That is what any company like Facebook, Amazon, Google would expect, that you build real life projects, not products which are cookie cutter, right? It's very sad when I talk to a lot of these engineering graduates and ask them, what projects are you building for your final year engineering? Most of them have like 2-3 answers, like library management system or school management system or ERP for college. I think we don't need to work on some of those projects. I think they have been done, used and abused for years. You need to think very innovatively, right? So whenever you are thinking of a final year project, or you are part of a boot camp, you're building things, right? Or you are participating in some competitions, think from scratch, think from first principle. So think of new projects, think of situations where you can build new products. So for example, because of this COVID, right, the way we work, the way we communicate, everything has changed. So can you think of solutions that can fit to this society, right? So think of real world projects, build those things, because that a recruiter gives a lot of value to unique and innovative projects, right? The way Will Smith was building something unique, you have to also build that and keep it real, right? So now the third, which is very important, right? When now what happens is the first slide says, learn all the theory you can, right? Which is algorithm, data structures. Then practice, train yourself hard. Go to these websites like HackerRank, Skillenza, HackerEarth, Lead Code, right? Go there, practice a lot of questions, prepare yourselves for the battle. That's theory. Then put the theory into practical world, which means build real projects, build applications which has some business value, some potential, right? In fact, if you can build it and put it on, if it's an app, put it on Google Play, put it on iOS Marketplace, right? If it's a website, send it to friends, let them use it. Like, yeah, have something which has real value. Then the third point is what next, right? Once I've done this, now you're ready for the battle. Now you're ready to compete with fellow engineers, right? So now what you do is you go and compete in hackathons and code jams, right? So as Skillenza, as I mentioned, we are one of the popular destinations for some of the large hackathons happening in the country. There are other players where you can go, other platforms, other websites. So keep yourself busy, compete and see where you stand, right? How do you compare with some other students, some other professionals in the industry? So if you, and all of these things are online. So you don't need to think about, hey, I'm from a small town or a tier 3 city, nothing happens in my city. Doesn't matter. It's happening online. So you just can go log into Scalenza or any of the websites and start competing, right? And all of these platforms will help you to go through the process. It's just not a competition. It also a good learning experience. So whenever we do a hackathon, we have a lot of content hosted. How do you build products? How do you design products? How do you host it on AWS or Azure, right? So treat these platforms as also a learning experience. So once you go there, you compete by learning with fellow developers, right? So that's the third piece. Now, what happens is, as a let's say, some of you are, I guess, today who are attending the session are also in their colleges. Some of you are working professionals. So this is quite applicable to students who are still in college. So once you have learned the skills, build a real world project, competed in some of the hackathons, done well, won some of the hackathons, I think you are now ready for your first real life experience, right? So how do you crack it is you go to some of the platforms like Internshala or AngelList. We also run an initiative called Intern Hunt. Just see product companies and startups who are looking for smart interns. Just keep applying there. And if you have done some of these concepts that I mentioned in the first 3 slides well, you are in a position to crack some of these internships, right? So, and what happens is most of these internships, if they are from a good startup or a good company, are paid, right? So always opt for a paid internship, even if the stipend is as low as 8,000, 10,000 rupees or 5,000. Because if the employer has to value your time, and you should also be in a position where you say, hey, I'm going to do a valuable piece of work for you. So I have this demand, or this is the stipend I want, right? And okay, I guess I didn't ask, but it's very evident. Can you guys guess which is this movie? Oh, okay. I guess there is a delay in the live. That's what I realized. So, but I guess the engineers at YouTube have to check the latency, right? So I assume there's a delay in YouTube live. Somebody pinged me. That's why people are not able to answer the question. I guess you can answer once you see it. Let me move to the next slide. So there is I guess this movie most of you guys have seen. This is Avatar, where this is a scene where all these people in the planet, right? They're trying to save the doctor, so they're working together, right? And they're working towards a common goal, right? And that is what open source means. So basically, once you have learned the basics of computer science, build real life projects, participated in hackathons, also have done an internship, now you're ready for a next level of experience, right? Which is what not every developer wants to do, but when you do it, you get a lot of value in the market, right? A lot of people respect you. You get to learn new things. You get to talk to some of the smartest people in the planet, right? Which is basically contributing to open source. I believe you guys understand open source, but let me, for everybody's benefit, let me just summarize it quickly in a couple of minutes. So basically, open source projects are done by communities who want to, who believe in free software, right? So for example, languages like Python, Ruby, Node.js, JavaScript, these are all open source languages. So which means a group of people have built it, and it's free to use, right? So people, for example, Scalenza is built on Python, right? So we have not paid any license fee to anybody. We've just, our CTO, our team knows Python, so they built it on Python and Angular. So these are all open source technologies, frameworks that a bunch of developers who believe in giving back to the society have built it. And as an engineer, if you become part of that coveted group, part of the special group, in contributing in the open source projects, right? So one is that as an engineer, you will always use those open source frameworks, right? I guess some of you guys are already working or even if a student, you are dabbling with technology, you must be using Angular or React, right? So you're using those open source technologies. Even if you're using Ubuntu, it's a open source software, right? It's based on Unix, it's based on Linux. So these technologies we all use, open source technologies, but how many are contributing, right? A handful of people contribute to open source projects. So, but if you are as a developer have contributed to any of these open source projects, or if you're a part of that special team, then a lot of recruiters love you, right? So which means you should have a account on GitHub, you should be part of these open source projects, you should have built open source projects yourself. Then you are like, this is like, you can see like a game, right? You are going through levels. So even if you are at level 2 or level 3, you are still attractive to most of the recruiters, but this is level 5. This is like, you can say master level. If you are here, then a lot of recruiters, in fact, most of the companies or all of the companies will run behind you, right? So you have, if you are aiming for jobs or internship in companies like Amazon or Google, this is the level I'll suggest, right? But most of the product companies will be fine with you being at the level 3, the first 3 slides, even if you, but you have to go to all those 3 steps. If you skip something, then probably you don't have a good chance in some of these companies, right? It's not that you'll not be able to crack it, but it's you can say it's a good formula for you to go forward, right? So moving to the next slide, as I mentioned, at Skillenza, we believe that talent can come from anywhere. So this is, if you remember this movie, this is one of my favorite movies called Ratatouille, where a rat cooks food better than the humans, right? So he's the chef. And that is what we believe in. The talent can come from anywhere, right? Great talent can come from any part of the country, be it a tier 2 city, tier 3 city, any state, doesn't matter, right? That's what we believe, and that's what our platform promotes. And as an engineer, as a student, you should always think about in today's world, nobody can stop you from learning, right? The way, if you remember, I guess a lot of people are seeing Mahabharat nowadays on TV, right? Because of the COVID situation. If you remember, there was some character called Iklavya in Mahabharat, right? He was not from higher pedigree. Basically, he was not a Brahmin, right? But still, he was. If you know Mahabharat, or if you can talk to somebody who knows Mahabharat, they all will tell you that Iklavya was a better archer than Arjun, right? And he was not. He didn't have royal blood. He was not from a higher pedigree, which means that if you are great person with great enthusiasm, right? If you are a person who wants to learn, in today's world, everything is free. If not, there are great platforms and partners who enable that with a very reasonable fee, or right, or a course structure. But there are ample amount of opportunities today which you can grab, and your college degree, your city, your language should not stop you, right? That is what I would like to say, that in today's world, recruiters, companies are also aware that talent can come from anywhere, and they're ready for that. And you should be able to grab that situation, right? Grab that opportunity and prove yourself, right? That's what our tagline says: prove yourself. And with that, I would like to conclude with the last favorite movie. This is basically Steve Jobs' autobiography, right? The movie based on his autobiography, his life. And one of his sayings, which is very popular, is called "Stay hungry, stay foolish," right? So always try to be inquisitive, always try to be in the learning mode, right? Have fun while learning. Be open to suggestions, work with friends and teams, talk to mentors. I guess in today's world, you can just go and ping someone who's, let's say, working in Amazon in LinkedIn, right? And say, hey, I'm looking to work at Amazon. I have 1 year. What should I do? People are open enough to give you suggestions, right? So that's being hungry, right? That you want to understand new things, you want to learn new things. And being foolish is basically don't have any inhibition, right? Keep asking questions. You can, like I said, you go to LinkedIn, ask anybody saying, hey, I want to prepare for Amazon. What should I do? So a lot of people would have inhibition saying that, hey, should I go and ask a stranger about these things. Become foolish, right? Say, hey, I don't know. I'll just go ask, right? So that will help you. So if you use these two things, if you stay hungry and stay foolish, you can achieve a lot, right? You can actually get the right swipe from a company of your dreams. So that'll be all from my side. I'll be happy to take questions. Jay, if you have any questions already there on YouTube, let me know. Or if people can send us via the chat right now. So we will continue to take more questions in the coming minutes.
I'm sharing the questions over the chat over here. You can see. This is the first question asked by
Okay.
Suraj.
Okay. Hi, Suraj. Thanks for the question. Give me a moment. So what happens is every company has a different process. So and also each process is customized for the role they are hiring. So for example, let's say we talk about the fresh graduate hiring, right? Or what a lot of companies also mention as SD1, right? Software development engineer level 1, right? So there, most of these companies, in fact, all of the companies will actually take a test first, which is what you mentioned, right? Technical evaluation. So they'll take a test, which is competitive programming in style. It's a coding test. It would range from a couple of hours to 5-6 hours. It might have few questions. It might have one question, depending on again on companies basically stage and how the company culture is, right? Once you go through that test, there are at least 3 to 4 more interviews that happen. It can also go up to 7 or 8, depending on the brand, right? Google sometimes takes around 9 to 11 interviews for SD1 roles also, right? What happens is once you do a coding round, then they take you through problem solving. They again probably will give you another set of coding questions, but they might not ask you to code, but to do whiteboarding, right? Which when it's an in-person interview, they might ask you to use the whiteboard or a piece of paper to put your thoughts, right? How are you approaching the problem in terms of code, right? In case of more little senior hiring, they might also ask you um, basically how do you design systems. In case of young graduates, they typically don't ask it, but nowadays they've also started asking it. But mostly in terms of little senior, like 3 years, 4 years, or maybe 5 years of experience, they also ask how do you design systems, which means like very simple. They'll ask you how do you design an Uber app, right? Like an app like Uber, where you have to book a cab. Now you think of the architecture, right? Of how do you design their app. So as an engineer, when you're looking at CS fundamentals, you should also have some focus on high level designs and low level designs, like the system design of how you create applications, how do you think about scalability, right? Security, all of these things you have to understand. And some of the companies do ask about these questions, right? I guess that would have answered your question. I'll be happy to chat on the YouTube live once the webinar is over. So we have another question from Abhit. Please give some examples related to open source projects, right? So basically, Abhir, what happens is if you go to GitHub, you will find all the open source projects. Very simple. If you are coding in Python or let's say Angular or JavaScript, all of these are open source projects. They are listed on GitHub. You can probably, and they also have a website. They have have an email out there. You can drop an email and see what is the official process to be part of the open source contribution, right? And what happens there is you can talk to those guys and start contributing. And what happens? Not everybody can contribute to these open source projects, right? So once they see your contributions, once you commit some code, they will accept those codes, right? They'll accept those changes into their open source framework. And once they do that, that is where you know that you have brought value to the open source project. So what happens there is you should you can just Google and see which are the top 20 open source projects in this year, right? There could be smaller open source projects. In fact, there are a lot of open source projects coming up from universities like MIT for COVID-19 situation. So They have open source ventilator, they have open source kits, right? So you can contribute there also. So just Google it out, and I'll be happy to share it on the chat after this, right? Uh, and in fact, there is something called Hacktoberfest. So one of our clients, DigitalOcean, which is a cloud computing platform like AWS or Azure, they run a program called Hacktoberfest, which is inspired from Oktoberfest, the beer drinking competition in Germany, right? So it runs again for a month, and there they encourage developers to contribute to all the open source projects, right? So you take any open source project in the month of October every year, contribute to the open source project. Once the project team accepts your contribution. So when I say contribution, it means there is an existing, let's say, React.js framework. You are suggesting some changes in form of code, right? Code changes or commits. If they accept your changes, if your change has some value, you get a prize money, a small prize from DigitalOcean. So it's a very interesting way of getting introduced to open source projects and contribution. And there are tons of blogs on Medium to go through and get ready for open source contributions. We have more questions coming our way. There is another one from Suraj. Are referrals valuable in these companies? Is there an inherent advantage to getting referred over other candidates? So yes, a referral works well. In fact, some of the boot camps that are there existing in the market, the boot camp that we are launching, we are designing in a way where we will work very closely with the companies to refer people who go through the process, right? And if you are not part of any boot camp, if you are preparing yourself, if you can find a college senior, or if you can find somebody on LinkedIn directly, like I said, that's why you have to stay foolish also. You should not have any inhibition before approaching people, right? So if they can refer you, that's great. And referral has value. In fact, because there is so much, you can say, supply today, or so much job seekers, the number of job seekers in the market today, the recruiters tend to, you can say, skip over, right? Oversee some of these resumes. So it's better to go through a warm introduction, be a boot camp or an existing employee. It would really help. Then we have another question from Pragyasis. What do you think about tech industry and engineering jobs due to COVID-19? Do you think there will be huge loss across tech industry or engineering jobs? I think what has happened because of COVID-19 is that the world has become more accepting towards technology, right? You would have seen your family members or your parents who were previously like saying, hey, let's get on a call. Now they are saying, hey, let's get on a video conference call, right? Because video has become one of the important factors. A lot of schools, colleges, they have moved their learning online, right? We are getting entertainment from all the OTT platforms like Netflix, Hotstar. Now we need a lot of technology to track our, you can say, public places like malls or shopping complexes, then your schools, your colleges, right? So which means there will be more technology used, right? We'll need a lot of AI in terms of predicting how this COVID situation is going to pan out. In fact, all the governments across the globe are using technology to track patients, do contact tracing, right? I guess there will be more jobs created. Whatever laying off, if you are seeing any, it is a temporary setback. It's not a permanent setback. In fact, the world is more open towards being virtual and collaborating through technology than it was before, right? So it's a silver lining. We should not worry a lot about it. But yes, I agree, there are layoffs happening. That's a temporary setback. We'll all probably get back to the normal situation, if not in next 6 months, at least in a year. I hope that answers your question. There is another question from Go Gyani. So the question is how to search for jobs in product-based companies because most of them ask for work experience, even for entry-level jobs. I agree. A lot of these companies ask for experience, right? And that's where my point of doing internship makes a lot of sense, right? Most of these companies are open to take interns. Even Amazon has a very great internship program. All of the startups are looking for interns. So if you can at least crack internship in some of these companies, that internship, 3 to 6 month internship has a lot of value. You can very well get the job from the company who has given you internship after the internship is over, provided you do really well, right? Based on the performance, obviously. And also that will be counted as some experience when you're applying for these product companies. So look out for platforms like Skillenza, Hacker Earth, right? And follow these guys on LinkedIn. You will see that they're actively posting some of these job openings on their platform, right? And also some of these companies already have, you can say, a talent community or a pipeline on their website. Just go and register yourself there. So whenever a new interesting thing happens, they will send you an email. So we have another question, which is very interesting. So one of my favorite topics, actually. Sir, it's from Sanket. Sir, can a electronics engineer get into product-based company like Google, Facebook? How difficult it is? So basically, if you have seen the trends happening in companies like Google, Facebook, they've stopped looking at college degrees, or they've stopped looking at resumes, right? So they don't believe in these things anymore. They believe in the real skill, right? If you can prove that you know those skills, you can get the job, right? So being an electronics engineer is not a bad thing. But what happens is because of you have studied a subject which is not close to computer science, you might not have some of the concepts in a manner the way the computer science graduate might have, which means you can take a certain time, which is 6 to 12 months, and prepare yourself, right? So if you have seen the presentation, the 5 points, right? Even if you go up to third point, you are almost ready for some of the good product companies, right? And the journey doesn't stop at your first job. So if you ask me, go through the steps that I mentioned on your own, right? Don't spend any money. Go to free places like Coursera, YouTube videos, free code camp, right? Or join some of the boot camps that I mentioned. After 6 7 months, get the first product opportunity that you get, right? Be it a startup, doesn't matter, and take the journey from there. So if you track people who have joined Google or companies like Facebook after 3 4 years of experience, most of them would have spent time in a small sized product company or a startup, because the grilling that happens in most of the tech startups in India or globally is immense, right? Because the team is small, it's agile, it's nimble, so the responsibility on you is huge, right? Which means the learning curve is also very steep. So you're learning learning a lot of things as part of a startup team versus a large enterprise. And some of these large enterprises, be it banks, be it product companies, they value people coming from startup today, right? So try to see if you can crack a startup job first, if not Google or Facebook as a first job. But once you go through the rigor, you would be ready for companies like Google or Facebook in the next 2 3 years, right? So the journey never stops, right? You can join Google after 10 years. It's not a problem, right? So the important step is the first step. If you have taken the first step correctly, I think you are on the right path, right? Then we have a question from Vivek Kumar. Uh, Vivek Kumar's question is, hi, currently I'm working as a machine learning scientist in a product-based company, but I want to work in these dream company in the field of AI. I didn't want to change my field, so what should I do? Yeah, that's a great question. So if you are already part of machine learning team in a product-based companies, I guess your exposure to the real world is quite high, right? Now what you can do, I think you have done the first 2 steps already. So you should do the third step, which means you should be participating in some of the competitions, data science competitions actively. Kaggle, we also, Skillenza also does a lot of data science competitions, right? Do that. And also start building a personal brand, right? Which means start writing blogs, right? Also be part of some of the training programs. So give back to the society, which means be part of a company or a boot camp where you can become a mentor or a trainer, right? So that will also give you an edge where when you go and approach these companies, they'll understand that you have done things on your own, right? You have built credibility by giving back to the society, which means you are a good trainer, you are a good mentor, and also you have won competitions. You are a, let's say, grandmaster in Kaggle or something like that. That will help you to build credibility, right? So that could help you there, and also keep looking out for the opportunities if they're already there. That's great, right? And I think you already know some of these things. Being part of the product companies, you know the rigor. I think that keep continuing the rigor. That will obviously help you. So Chaitanya asked the question: how can we find a mentor who can guide us? Or like I mentioned, stay foolish, right? Just very simple. Go to Twitter, go to LinkedIn, mention, let's say, people who are working in Amazon and probably your city, let's say Bangalore, and see if there is a 2, 3, 5 years experience engineer. Just send them a request on LinkedIn. 5, 6 guys write saying that, hey, I'm a final year engineering student, or I have 1 year of experience. I'm working in so company. I'm looking to go to a product company, go to next level. I think you can help me out in my journey. Will you be able to guide me through the process, right? You can do that. There are a lot of good people out there who have already mentioned on LinkedIn that they are open to mentorship. They can help you in that. Second is, like I mentioned, be part of these boot camps. They have already a mentorship program as part of their curriculum. That can also help. And if you are already in college, just look around if your college has a coding club, if you have some enthusiastic students who are doing hackathons. Some of them might have access to mentors. If not, then ping us. We'll try to help you out. Right? We have another question from Nick Agarwal. But cracking the internship in product-based companies is too hard for a second-year student. How to make it possible? So, like I mentioned, if you are in second year, you want to crack an internship, go to startups first. Like I mentioned, startups are fine taking college students, whether in second year or third year. All you have to do is prove that you are a good engineer, right? All the 3 steps, right? The first 3 steps, you have to do that. If you do that, then you get your first and second year internship in a startup, and then the third year internship can happen in a larger product company, right? So take baby steps. Do always focus on small wins, right? If you focus on, you say, if I want Google as my first job, and if that doesn't happen, then you are frustrated. That's fine. If you are smart enough to get into Google, you already probably know the path, or somebody has told you the path. If you are already smart and you are thinking that you will not be able to crack Google, don't worry. Take baby steps, do small wins, which means, like I mentioned, go to a startup, work there for 1 year, couple of years, then move to a large mid-sized product company, then to a larger product company, right? So keep hustling, right? Be always hungry, right? Talk to smart people. I guess obviously the journey is tough. You need to do a lot of hard work because like I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, these companies are looking for the best talent. So don't get intimidated saying that, hey, I'm not from a great college, how will I become best? That is on you, right? As I mentioned, you don't need to go to IIT to be the best programmer, but you need to do all the hard work that an IITian would have done to become the best programmer, right? So there is no shortcut to hard work. There is no shortcut to, you can say, honesty, right? And putting whatever this thing as the highest priority. That there is no shortcut to that. But don't worry about the background. Most of the companies don't care about these backgrounds anymore, right? So that'll be my suggestion to keep hustling. That way you can probably get to some of the best companies. We have one question from Stanley. How to find internships with good companies and where to find hackathons. Okay, so like I said, internships, there are a lot of platforms. AngelList, Scalenza, Internshala in India. If you are in globally, there are good platforms everywhere. You can find it out. If not, just one quick hack I will tell you, don't quote me anywhere, is just go and add all the founders on LinkedIn, or just go of startups and just write to them. Okay. And most of them are looking for great talent, so they will connect you internally and they'll get you the internship. Or just go on Twitter. Most of the founders of startups in India and globally are active on Twitter. Just go and mention them and say, hey, I'm looking to do an internship at a startup. What's the process? They will help you out, right? So they are quite open. They are quite, you can say, welcoming. So that's a quick hack, but don't quote me anywhere. And where to find hackathons? Register on Skillenza. There are a bunch of blogs on Quora about hackathons happening. You can also check out DevPost, which is based out of New York. It's a startup in New York. They also do a bunch of hackathons. So you can check out hackathon.io. So these are places where you can find all the hackathons happening globally. So another question from Nick Agarwal. For startup, we need good development, and for product-based company, we must have really good data structures and algorithm. How to manage? See, for any good engineering role, you need data structure and algorithm. So if you imagine, and I'm a big foodie, so I always try to quote food. So if you imagine a lunch, right, a meal, data structure and algorithm is your rice. Okay, you have to have that. That's the base. Without that, nothing can happen. If you when you go to a startup, because it's a small team, they don't have a lot of resources, so they would want you to be productive from day one, from the word go, right? So they would want you to come and start building product and deploying it on AWS. But if you're joining a company like Amazon or Intuit or PayPal as a SD1, they will not expect you to start deploying products. They'll expect you to start coding, right? So that's the only expectation. But the common expectation, right, is good algorithm and data structure. So if you're good at that, if you think that, okay, fine, I'm okay with cracking a big company, you can crack that without getting a lot into product development. But I would suggest that you should get into product development so that you can open your doors for startups, right? Just increase your probability of getting into a good company. And as I mentioned, if you are in a startup, the journey to a product company like Amazon, Google becomes higher. The probability becomes higher. So either you directly go to Amazon through your first job, or you go from a startup to Amazon, does not matter, right? But both of these kinds of companies are looking for smart engineers, where data structure and algorithm is the base, right? You have to do that. Jay, are there more questions?
I'm just seeing the questions. Just hold on.
Sure, sure. Guys, my Twitter handle is SkipIIT, SKIPIIT. You can follow it. Like I mentioned, all founders, including me, are open to talking to people, helping them out. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to connect you to some of my team members if you need a mentor. I'll be happy to share some resources with you going forward so that you can prepare for these jobs and internships better. Do give us feedback if you like to cover us on some topics. You can leave that on the chat also. I guess Jay would love to host those sessions with other mentors and other founders, right, Jay?
So this is the one question that Suraj is asking.
Okay, it's a good question actually. The question is, what is the dependency of salary offered to one's previous salary? How to best negotiate compensation? So what happens in the salary market is, obviously there is a standard that you should ask, right? But if you think that you are worth more than that, you have all the rights to ask, but you have to justify that. So there is no you can say right or wrong way to do it, but you have to justify it, right? So let's say you are at X salary. The market standards typically is 20 to 30% raise, right? Some companies, if they're desperate or they're looking for talent faster, they might offer you little higher. But if you think that you deserve more than that, you have to justify. And the best way to justify that is actually see what products and what business is the company in, right? For example, if the company is into food delivery, right, and you have done an interview with that company, and you think that you have you need a better salary. The salary they're offering, you think you can command a higher salary. So when you talk to them, you should justify saying that, hey, the kind of work that I have done in my previous company or the projects that I have done are very relatable to the product that you are building or you have built, right? So when you think, so that is the understanding you should have as an engineer. If you can sell yourself, it's a sales thing, right? So as a sales guy, if I'm going and selling a product, as a job seeker, as an engineer, you should sell yourself, and that can only be done through data. And when you are buying something, let's say you're buying an iPhone versus an Android phone, you just do a bullet point saying, right, oh, iPhone is great because this has this feature, blah, 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 or it just looks great on me. I feel rich, right? I would look rich if I have an iPhone versus an Android. That could be a valid point. And somebody will get sold on that. And that's why iPhone can command that high price, and they're still one of the most popular phones globally, right? So which means as an engineer, you have to sell yourself. So you have to create a pitch for which you need to understand what the company is doing and how your previous experience, your work experience, college project, open source contribution is going to be a good fit, right? And a lot of these companies also look for team player. So if you are a team player for which you should participate in hackathons, do open source contribution, and once you have gone through the first 3 steps, you are in the 4th or 5th step, you should start giving back, right? And I know it sounds very cheesy, but it's karma, right? If you give back, if you also help some of the students who are in need, that will make you a very strong mentor, right? A strong team leader, which you can always showcase in the interview, saying that, hey, I'm just not an individual contributor, I'm also a team player. So when you hire me, your 10% of your whatever team management is also on me. Some of these things, and this is not the exact right answer. There could be multiple versions of it, depending on what skill set you are, right? If you are a product manager, the pitch is different. If you're a designer, the pitch is different. But nevertheless, you have to sell yourself as a talent in order to command higher salary. So that's one of the good ways to negotiate compensation. So we have another question. How can I connect you with directly for mentorships and guides? I'll prefer we connect via LinkedIn. Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is, you can, Subhendu Panigrahi. It's again, Skip IIT is the handle on LinkedIn also. So you can find me there. Just add me and just mention that we interacted on the webinar. I'll add you and we'll chat over there. Oh, we have a very good question from Stanley. If you can crack GSOC, I mean, nothing like it. I would tell you that at least if you are able to get a GSOC, please go for it. It's one of the more prestigious things to have on your resume as a programmer. Try to have it in one of your college years, right? Whenever you can crack it. I'll always say GSOC greater than internship. But some of the companies still prefer internship experience higher, but most of the companies still value GSOC at a higher range. Jay, anything else? Oh, that's it? Cool. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us feedback on the chat and let us know what new topics you would like to hear in the future webinars. And keep learning, right? Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you.